Okay, family, we're back. Today we're doing Escape of the Bride, Part 3, Mars, Mission, and the Coronation. We're back on Stellarium, hunting the signs for the Escape of the Bride. Here we are, focusing in on Mars. We're going to pull up the date. What we're looking at is the Sun and Mars in conjunction. We're going to go back the day before and see that there's the conjunction there on the 18th. This is the next day. There's the conjunction. It's at the midnight hour. In the constellation of Libra. We also have asteroid Ceres. And based on the codes, with Mars and Ceres and the Sun in Libra, we're looking at a judgment sign. And so what we're going to do is we're going to run forward and we're going to look at this story of Mars. So again, if you've been watching my videos, you've been following me, if you know about my Kadash Culture channel, then you'll know that from my perspective, in my Mazzaroth research, Mars is to be looked at as Michael the Archangel. And when we go through all the wedding signs, that perfectly fits this year with everything that Mars has been doing. It's a perfect fit. So I don't have any question that Mars is not a Michael figure. It can be looked at in other ways. Most of these planets have the ability to have a dual meaning. But it depends on the house they're in, and it also depends on the scenario that's going on. So you have to have some deeper research into the Mazzaroth to be able to understand not only the story that is being portrayed, but you also have to understand the codes that are there for these asteroids and planets, and it allows you to understand the story from a deeper perspective, and that gives you a better picture of what's happening. So right here we have the Sun and Mars alignment, and what that means to me in this whole scenario is that we are seeing the bridegroom meet with the war angel, and this meeting is what gives Michael his mission. So this is the Mars mission. This is the mission of Michael given by the bridegroom. And we're going to see that play out here in this video. So we're going to scroll in a little more, and then we're going to watch as Mars transitions through the field. And we're going to see how on the 26th, let's back out so you can see this. We've already shown this in some previous videos, but we're going to see how on the 26th we see Mars aligning with Ophiuchus. This is its connection to Ophiuchus. So we're going to watch that transition. So we see here on the 26th at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, we see Mars lining up with Ophiuchus. And this would be my first sign for the Revelation 12, 7, and 8. And now we actually see Mars in position of Ophiuchus as the snake bearer. And most of you have seen my past videos. You know that I've been tracking these asteroids. We have asteroid Iris right here in the Golden Gate next to Mars. And if you've been watching my code video breakdowns, then you'll know that Iris equals the serpent bearer. And it has many other meanings, like a rapture and the eye of God. And so what we're seeing here is Mars lining up with Ophiuchus, and we have Mercury, the messenger angel, and we have Iris, which is a sign of the serpent bearer. And if you've seen my video on the war in heaven, then you will know that I have been tracking this since 2020. And in 2020, if you remember, we had the grand conjunction, and that sign was what I believe is the very first part of Revelation 12:7. And that war has been taking place since then. And we're basically looking at 3 years of the war in heaven. And this, Michael coming into conjunction this year with Ophiuchus like this, with all of these players in this position, is very strong language for that war in heaven. So what I believe we're seeing right now is that war in heaven taking place because we have Mercury and Mars and Ceres and Iris, and we have a new player in the game. We have Asteroid Wade. I have a subscriber, Alamar, that commented in one of my posts and asked me to look up Asteroid Wade. And so at the end of the video, what we're going to do is we're going to break down that conjunction of Asteroid Wade and the sun. And it's all here in the Golden Gate. It's all playing into this story right here. So we're going to break it all down and explain to you how this story is playing out in heaven. So we see that all of these things are aligning here in the Golden Gate. For those of you who've seen my previous videos about the gates, then you'll know that when the sun is in one of the gates, the sun is the key holder, and the gates are able to be unlocked with the sun being in the gate. And we need to see this gate key if we're going to see the enemy cast down and cast out of heaven and loses access to these gates and portals. Then we're going to need to see the sun with the key. That the sun is the bridegroom. The bridegroom represents Christ. Now Christ has the keys. So because he has the keys, he's able to lock out the enemy. So if the enemy is cast down, then they will lose their access to these gates and portals. And I believe that's what CERN is all about. They are trying to circumvent losing the access to the gates, and they are trying to release the prisoners of the underworld, and they're using these gates to do that, to bring these entities into this world. And that's what these gates would be used for, is transportation from one realm or one world to another. And this Golden Gate area is really, really important because it is projecting to us very, very strong star language with the constellations that are here. So, number one, we know that Ophiuchus is wrestling a serpent. It is also one of its legs, the heel area, is being stung by Scorpio, and it's also stamping or stomping on the head of the serpent or Scorpio. And then it's also keeping the, let's scroll back just a little bit, it's keeping the snake from the crown. And so when Mars is aligned with Ophiuchus, then we have Mars or Michael taking the position as a serpent bearer. And so what we're going to do is we're going to move forward, and we're going to see how Mars makes a transition to another spot, and it completes the story. So we're going to watch as this transition goes through. And let's go ahead and show this here. So we have Iris that is still in the center of the Golden Gate. We have Mercury, who is now in the center of the Golden Gate. And we have Mars that is transitioning to the temple. So let's back out really quick. You can see the temple. So this is the Temple of Sagittarius. And this is the line that connects where the planets cross. And so when we have an alignment of any of the planets or any of the asteroids or comets, then we have language there. So we have the moon on the 10th is in the temple. We have Mars is about to complete its mission and enter into the temple itself. So we're going to go forward. We're going to go into Mars. And let's scroll in so you can see, I believe it's 1932, I believe. Yeah. Okay, so here we are at 1932 on January the 11th. We see Mars align with the temple. And this period between when it came out of the Hupa, or the alignment with Ophiuchus, and its alignment with the temple, I believe this period in between here is our war in heaven sign. And Mercury is right in the middle, and we all know Mercury is the messenger. Mercury is also Gabriel, the messenger angel. And we also have all of these players. So let's go ahead and go through these players. So we have Iris. We have Ceres. We have Wade. and we have Psyche. And all of these are playing in our sign here in Sagittarius and the Golden Gate. So what we're looking at here is the mission of Mars. It's lining up with Ophiuchus, and it's lining up with the temple. And I believe that once Mars lines up with the temple, it's showing that it's entering the temple, and that to me is a sign that the war is over. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go back and we're going to look at another sign. And this again from a subscriber, Alamar Miraglum, and he asked me to check out Asteroid Wade. So here we go, Alamar. We're looking at Asteroid Wade and the Sun coming into conjunction on the 26th. And I want you to notice that this conjunction is happening right at the temple. And so it took me a while to put all this together and to get these understandings, because I had to go look at the codes. And so a couple things really stood out in the codes. Most of it is judgment language, but there were a couple things that were standouts to me. So what I want to do is I want to show you this a little deeper, and we're going to go back to, give me a minute, family. We're just going to get these alignments done correctly. Okay, so we see here Wade. Let's scroll in just a little more. So we can see here's Asteroid Wade, and this is going to eclipse Asteroid Wade, and see that it starts at 6 p.m. So at 6 p.m. on the 26th, we see Asteroid Wade go behind the Sun. It's not there anymore. Okay, now let's go ahead and move forward. One full day. And we see at the exact same time, we see Wade transitioning out the other side of the Sun. So we can just scroll forward and you can see how Wade is now come from behind the Sun. And so we're going to go back. We're going to look at the beginning. And here we are. And we can see how this line of the temple, the Sun is directly over the temple. And the day after, the Sun has passed over the temple and has entered into the main part of Sagittarius. And so what really stood out to me is these codes. So the first thing that I saw that stood out to me was Asteroid Wade equating to coronation. And really stood out on the 26th when this began, and its alignment with the temple. And the reason is, on that exact same day, we see Mars lining up with Ophiuchus. And so it looks as though, from the storyline, that the Sun has entered into the temple, to receive its coronation. And at the same time, we know that Mars and the Sun met back on the 18th of November. And that meeting gave Mars its mission. And now the Sun entering into the temple, we see on the same day Mars entering into the Golden Gate, lining up with Ophiuchus, going to war. And if you are the war captain, then you have to make sure that the guys above you are protected. And so your plans all arrange with where they're going to be. So the Sun, being the captain of the guard, he is now in the safe chambers while the war's going down. And so this coronation happening inside of the temple was strong language for me. And we also see that all the right players on the 26th are in the Golden Gate for the war in heaven. So while the Sun is having its coronation, we can see how all the right players are taking care of his business for him while that is happening. And we also have a couple other codes that fit this language. One is Saturn destroyed. And so if we look back to 2020 during the Grand Conjunction, where I believe our sign started, this was a Grand Conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn. If you know anything about those planets, you know Jupiter is the king planet, and you know that Saturn is Satan. So Saturn destroyed with this asteroid Wade aligning with the Sun on the 26th, exactly the same day that Mars lines up with Ophiuchus, is very strong language. And we also have Judgment Day. And that, to me, looks to be Judgment Day on the fallen, that they are going to have their own Judgment Day. And in the scriptures, it says that the wicked will be judged first. And so I see that judgment of the wicked as the judgment of the fallen, and they are cast down. And we also see the end of time. We also see Sagittarius in the code for Wade. We also see salvation is coming. We see Middle East war. We see planned virus. We see vaccine mark of the beast. And red tsunami. And we also see white robes. And so this language helped me to show its importance. And I wanted to thank Alamar for pointing me to this, because it has very strong language for the Sun having its coronation in the temple. And that can also be wedding language. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and run forward back to the day that Mars enters the temple. Let's go a couple days before, and let's look at this a little closer. So first thing that we're seeing on the 9th, at the end of the day, is, let's go back over here, and let's scroll in on the moon. Forgive me, family, this takes a little bit. And we're going to go ahead and watch the transition of the moon into Sagittarius. Now the moon has entered into the arc of protection on the 9th at 20. So we're looking at 8 p.m. Pacific time. And the moon then transitions into the temple on the 10th at 6 p.m. It's in the center of the temple. And then on the 11th, it's essentially coming into alignment with the sun on the 11th. We can see here that, let's bring this meridian back. And let's line these up on meridian. You can see how this is really close alignment. So we're looking at just after midnight on the 11th, we have the moon and the sun under the wing of Sagittarius. And there's multiple scriptures of that under the wing, and that's all star language of this Sagittarius spot. So we have the sun and the moon, the bridegroom and the bride, while Mars is basically anointing the temple. Mars is seen in multiple ways. Mars is the captain, and so he can also be seen as a priest. And so Mars going into the temple after the war, after his mission is completed, the enemy is cast down. I do not believe that after this date that the enemy will be able to access the gates anymore. So we're looking at January the 11th. We see the sun and the moon under the wing. We also see Mars at the temple. Let's go in a little closer and let's watch this transition to where Mars does its alignment. There we go. Let's scroll in a lot closer. We can get an exact time. I believe it's 1932. There we go. You can see Mars is just about on the line. It's right there, 1933. On the 11th, Mars enters the temple. And the sun and the moon are still under the wing. And this happens to be Hanukkah, January 11th, 2024. I have this as day 1 of Hanukkah. And we're going to come back and we're going to do another video breakdown of the rest of the story. We have a couple more things to show, but we're going to end it here. I'm going to end up showing you all of the Hanukkah signs. But until then, here we are, thanks to Alamar, we can see that there are many things in the Mazzaroth that are showing us very, very strong language of our escape. And we're continuing to look forward for all of the signs. We don't pick a date. We just keep looking at the signs. And always remember, family, that the signs come right before the escape. It's not going to happen at the same time, because just as if you're driving down a road, you normally have multiple signs that warn you of the exit. And they're always before the exit, otherwise you'd miss the exit. So we're looking at strong language or strong signs pointing us to our escape. Thanks for joining. We'll see you again soon.